Good morning. Thanks to all of you for joining mid-morning. This webinar on dairy industry's commitment to animal care. To kick off today's discussion, I thought I'd set the stage about why the topic of matters to consumers today and why it should matter to really all of us on the phone. I appreciate your listening in. Obviously, topic of interest to all of you. We know that people are less connected to agriculture today, which really increased skepticism about how it works. And this knowledge gap is really continuing to widen, particularly among millennials, folks who are born between the 1980s and the 2000s. And according to Forbes, it's really a powerful group. There's about 80 million millennials in America, and they represent about a fourth of the entire nation. And they have 200 billion in annual buying power. So a lot of influence, not only among their peers, but among generations and their setters across countries, from fashion to food. If you look at this recent study from Edelman, their field study, we can see that only 47% of folks are really believing that farming is performed in a responsible way. 40% believe that U.S. farmers take good care of the environment, and 1/3 agree that a humane manner. So there's a gap there, and even those that didn't respond, it doesn't necessarily mean that they disagree, but more often than not, they really don't know. And so there is a gap out there around animal care, and we can all work together to really help bridge that gap. There's just a number of studies out there, you continue to see them every day, that show that animal care ranks as a priority among consumers today more than ever. Consumers are looking for assurance their dairy products are coming from cows that are healthy and well cared for. They really want more transparency in knowing where their food comes from and how it was treated. So in specific, if you look at the stats here, 9 out of 10 of the consumers in this survey responded they were very concerned about farm animal welfare. An increase from a year ago. 3/4 say they're willing to pay more. So again, there's purchasing power behind this desire to learn more and to act upon beliefs in animal care. In a row in this survey, the attribute humanely raised scored highest among food label importance, really beating out antibiotic-free, organic, and natural. So, why does this matter? Whether you're an employee or a retailer or a manufacturer or a health and wellness professional or a dairy farmer, animal care is everyone's responsibility, and sharing the news about animal care is something that we can all take part in. What's exciting is the dairy industry has a really positive tell around the topic of animal care, and there's a tremendous benefit for all of us to really work together, share that same messaging, communicate our shared value around the commitment to animal care. So that's our goal today. We really want to provide a lot of background about the dairy industry's commitment to animal care. We want to provide We want to update you specifically on the FARM program, which is the dairy industry's animal care program, which is based on the latest research, and it's focused on ensuring continuous improvement, which is really exciting. And then we want to share some tools and resources that are available to help all of you this shared messaging and the great stories about the dairy industry's commitment to animal care. And our ultimate goal really is to continue to build consumer confidence in dairy products. So I'd like to introduce our webinar speakers. We're really excited to have first Emily Meredith here, Vice President of the Animal Care Program for the National Milk Producers Federation in Arlington. Her primary responsibilities lie in the areas of animal welfare, dairy farm management, animal health, and food chain outreach. She manages the National Dairy Farm Program, which stands for Farmers Assuring Responsible Management. And this program assures consumers that milk and other products from our dairy farms are the end result of responsible animal care practices of dairy farmers throughout the country. She also focuses on education and training that fall under the farm program and assists in other areas of the regulatory departments such as biosecurity and residue avoidance. Jamie Liebich here from the business development team. She's a business development manager at Midwest Dairy Association, and her primary responsibility is in helping retailers and manufacturers understand and react to consumer trends, including changes in demographics, use of technology, and the demand for transparency. So she's been active in the dairy industry for more than 12 years and works on behalf of dairy farmers throughout the Midwest to grow dairy sales and increase consumer confidence in the dairy supply chain. So now I'd like to turn it over to Emily to kick off the discussion.
Great, thanks Trish, and thank you everyone for taking time to be on this webinar today. As Trish mentioned, animal care has become a very important issue to consumer trust, and the National Dairy Farm Program, I think you'll see after we go through the presentation today that this program really helps us provide the proof points that are necessary to help that trust when it comes to animal care. So if we go to the next slide, what we're going to cover today is we're going to talk a little bit about who the National Milk Producers Federation is and how we manage the farm program. We're going to give you some background on the program. We're going to cover off some of the successes and how those successes are being communicated. We're going to talk about the future of the program, and then we're going to have some asks for you and some homework assignments that we're looking for your help in completing and helping us achieve our goals here at the farm program. So let's talk about who the National Milk Producers Federation is. So we are an organization that was established in 1916. We're celebrating our centennial this year, very exciting. And our members are cooperatives in the country. So our membership markets the vast majority of the fluid milk produced in the United States. And we really work on a number of fronts, but primarily around formulating national policy on issues that are affecting the entire U.S. dairy industry, one of which, of course, is animal care. Again, if we go to the next slide. There we go. Our goals really are about improving the economic well-being of our cooperatives and their farmer ownership, ensuring that we have an adequate supply of dairy products to supply the consumers that are looking for dairy in their diets, which hopefully they all are. As I mentioned, NMPF represents our member cooperatives, and we have cooperatives that cover every geographic region of the United States, and many that fall in the Midwest and in MDA's territory. And we work with them on a number of levels, both on our board and through their leadership, but they also serve, representatives from these co-ops serve on a number of our standing committees, one of which focuses exclusively on animal health and well-being and how we are going to advance programs like farm and in safeguarding cattle health and well-being throughout the dairy industry. So let's touch base on what the farm program is, when it started, and how it was formulated, what our mission is. So the program was started in 2009 as a joint partnership between the Milk Producers Federation and the Dairy Checkoff, or DMI. And it really is about assuring consumers that dairy farmers raise and care for their animals in a responsible, humane, and ethical manner. And again, I think we live in a society now, especially with the millennial generation, they're looking for information, they're looking for proof points. They're not just comfortable with a trust us sort of mentality. They want that data, they want those facts that are going to back up what we're saying. And so the farm program really helps us provide those hard facts and figures to support the very good story that has to tell when it comes to animal care. You know, this is not a new issue for us. Animal care and well-being is inherent to dairy farmers everywhere. Without their cows, they wouldn't have a business, they wouldn't have a product to sell. But we need to be communicating that, those very verifiable proof points, and that's what the farm program allows us to do. So there's 3 pillars to the farm program. And I really want to zero in on this element of continuous improvement. This is what the farm program was based on when it was started back in 2009. And it's really this idea that perfection is not the goal. And I want to be very clear about that. We do a lot of consumer insight studies, as does DMI, as does MDA. And what we find continually is that consumers are not looking for perfection. What they are looking for is demonstrable progress. And this idea of continuous improvement really resonates with them because it means that we're continuing to do things better over time. We're evolving our practices. We're making change where necessary. And that's really the central goal of the farm program, is that progress is happening year over year, cycle after cycle, and that we're continuing to improve. And so we do that in three ways. First, by promoting the use of best management practices, conducting our second-party evaluation, and then third, through our third-party verification. So we're going to go through each of those in a little bit more detail. So the first pillar of farm is really this idea of promoting best management practices. You'll see there on the right hand of your screen, that's our animal care reference manual, and that's really a core of farm. That's where all of our guidelines are contained. This manual is written by our technical writing group, which is comprised of academics, co-op staff, veterinarians, and producers, and they come together every 3 years to look at what's the latest research, what are we seeing out in the field, what are we hearing that we might need to work on, and then they revise these best management practices every 3 years in a continuous improvement cycle. It covers all aspects, the program covers all aspects of the cow's life, including when those cows go off to slaughter and become dairy beef, which is a very large focus of our program. And then we have a whole suite of complementary materials that focus on issues like residue prevention and antibiotics, that focus on protocol development, and this program is really about management. The acronym FARM, Farmers Assuring Responsible Management. This program really can grow to cover a whole host of issues that might emerge over the next 5, 10, 15 years that are really becoming a focus on on-farm practices. And so again, this is just one aspect, this animal care of management of a dairy. The next aspect of our program is our second-party evaluation. So as I mentioned, this idea of consumer confidence is really about providing the data and the proof points to support what we're saying. And so we do that by evaluating our dairies, and we do that through our second-party evaluators. So these are individuals that have been trained. They have to have a minimum of 8 years experience in the dairy industry or a dairy science degree and 2 years of experience. So this is not just anyone off the street. These are people that are very knowledgeable in the dairy industry, have worked in the dairy industry a long time. And we train them in person. They have to go through a classroom and a farm evaluation training where they learn not only what the questions are, but how to ask those questions to really start a dialogue with producers and talk about this idea of continuous improvement and really work on effectuating change on dairies if it's necessary. Those evaluators need to recertify annually, and they need to pass an exam every time they recertify with at least an 80% score. So as you can see, this is not your typical, 50% or above. This is a very high benchmark, and we really hold all of our evaluators to that level. That's a picture there of some of our evaluators on the dairy going through the training. As you can see, they're holding up their evaluation questions. What you'll notice is in our manual, that I showed you on the last slide, anytime you see that manual, and that's available for download, and also folks at Midwest Dairy can get you some copies of that if you're interested. Anytime in that manual that you see a check mark, that means that there's a corresponding evaluation question that is asked by our second-party evaluators. So everything from training to protocols to calf care and record keeping, those are all questions that are on the actual evaluation. So there's approximately 52 evaluation points in the evaluation, and many of those have a lot of subparts. So there's actually a lot more than 52 actual questions, but we say 52 because it's easier. And that also involves animal observation. So those evaluators are getting out there, they're talking to the farm owner and manager, they're talking to the employees, and then they're also looking at the animals themselves. And they're looking at what we call outcomes-based measures. So we're not looking at how a certain procedure is being done or mandating, things like stall length or dimensions. What we're looking at is, are those animals free from abrasions? Are they dirty? Are they clean? We're looking at the outcomes to determine whether the practices and procedures in effect on that dairy are meeting their intended needs. And that's really what the focus is of that evaluation. And then the last aspect of our program is this idea of our third-party verification. So the third-party verifications are conducted every year on a percentage of our dairy farms. And what happens is, in order to be part of the farm program as a dairy, you need to agree to be part of the pool that's randomly selected for third-party verification. So you have to participate in third-party verification or you can't be in the farm program. So we randomly select farms every year. We use a group of statisticians to do that selection. The data is blinded from National Milk because we don't want to be influencing any selection in any way. And we use an algorithm that picks farms that are representative of geographic locations across the United States and also as well as a number of other factors. The evaluation points that those third-party verifiers are asking are the same evaluation points that our second-party evaluators are asking, but what they're looking for is to see if that second-party evaluator conducted their evaluation with integrity and that we can ensure that the integrity of the program remains intact. So we look at how many evaluations we do to prove that integrity to a 95% level. So for those of you that might not be mathematicians, I myself am not one. It's a very complicated system, but we really are looking again to verify the integrity of the program and that it can hold up to what we're saying about it. On to what we are terming some of our successes. So the farm program has celebrated a number of successes over the last 7 years since it began. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the program by the numbers. So as of right now, we have 84 participating co-ops and processors. That covers approximately 94% of the domestic milk supply. So right now we have farms in every state in the United States except for Alaska and Hawaii. Much as I continue to ask to have some farms in Hawaii, we can't seem to locate any. Because I would certainly like to visit there, especially in the winter right now. But we have over 38,000 second-party evaluations in our system. And to put that into perspective, according to the latest USDA report, there's approximately 44,000 dairies in the United States. And so we've evaluated we have a little over 38,000 evaluations in our system. Now what that means is that some of these dairies have been evaluated for the second or the third time because we require dairies to be evaluated at least once every 3 years. So every time the program is updated, we require farms to be evaluated on that new format. So some of them are on their second or third round, but as you can see, we've evaluated and a large proportion of the farms in the United States are covered by this program. So I think that's a huge success. And then I just wanted to emphasize that we have over 370 trained farm program evaluators. And I think that that's important because this program takes an incredible amount of manpower to execute. It really is a huge commitment on the part of our co-ops and processors to execute the program. They have staff that are dedicated just to doing farm program evaluations and follow-ups that might be required. And so I think that it's really important to note that this program would not operate if not for the commitment of our co-ops and processors in ensuring that it works, because it really does take a lot of people to implement this program. One of the things that we've done this past year, is we put a survey into the field to really find out from our farmer community what they have found valuable from the farm. We can, because we're always looking to do that better as the program itself. So one of the things that we asked was, what was the most valuable thing you changed on your dairy as a result of your evaluation? And I just copied and pasted some exact responses. I didn't even change spelling or any grammar or anything. I just copied and pasted. And I think what it emphasizes is that a lot of those high-ticket items, a lot of those things that you might be hearing about from your consumers, getting questions about, like a herd health plan or employee training in animal care, calf care, downer animals that can't get up anymore, or pain management for painful procedures like dehorning of calves. Those are all things that people addressed as a result of their farm program evaluation, really made changes as a result of that process. And if you go, what you'll see is we asked this question, does farm add value to your operations? And over 89% of dairies, that's represented by the dark blue color there, said yes, that farm did add value to their operation. We had a little over 2% that were undecided, and then of course we had some no's there that we are going to be working on this year, hopefully getting them to yes. But as you can see, the producer community feels very strongly that this program does indeed add value to their operation, and that it's really helping to effectuate continuous improvement, which is of course its stated goal. So moving now into some common questions. We get a lot of questions from both ends of the spectrum, both our producer community and from those of you that might be customers and represent the downstream end of the supply chain. And I just wanted to provide you some of our answers that we usually give when we're talking about the farm program. So one of the first questions we get from both ends of the spectrum is, why is farm important? And I hope that from what I've said thus far, you have a better understanding of why the program is important. But one of the things I wanted to zero in on here is this idea that really what we need in the dairy industry is for animal care to not be a competitive issue. It's contrary to the goal of welfare, and really animal care should not be a differentiator. Everyone should be caring for their animals the same way, and we in the dairy industry should be talking about it the same way so that our consumers are confused into thinking that, you know, a cow from this farm is treated better than a cow from that farm. I think it benefits us all to have consumers knowing and understanding that animal care is inherent to the dairy industry and that it's a top priority for everyone involved. And so what farm really helps us do is provide one consistent, unified program that everyone can be a part of and can adhere to. Obviously, our producers are the ones that are really adhering and helping to run the program, and our co-ops and processors are the ones implementing it. But you as customers and brands can also have a role in terms of verifying and endorsing the program, and then talking about your goals around animal care, and those goals hopefully align with the farm program, because again, we don't want this to be a differentiator in the market. On the next slide, one of the next questions we always get is, how can we engage? How can we get involved? And I wanted to just put a flag here that we have done a lot this past year in helping to talk about animal care and the farm program in a way that's more relatable to those end users, to those consumers, to those millennial moms. They're shopping and making purchasing decisions. So we launched a new website that's very consumer friendly. We have a new blog where we're looking to share not only program successes, but also to share content that's written by producers talking about, you know, issues in animal care, talking about things that they do on their farm, how they care for their animals, and how that works with the farm program. And then what you'll see there at the bottom of the screen is our Farm Proud badge. So as I mentioned, how you get involved in the farm program, if you're a co-op or processor, you're actually implementing the program in your member dairies. But if you're one step removed from that co-op or processor level, how you can get involved is by endorsing the program and by helping us ensure that we're all talking about animal care in the same way. And so we created this badge because a number of companies, and I think if we go to the next slide, we'll see just a few examples of some of the companies that have endorsed farm. But we've created this badge to help recognize those companies that are very actively engaged in working with the farm program and making sure their co-ops are involved in farm, and so we wanted to recognize them. Just a few examples here are Saputo, Great Lakes Cheese, and Leprino. As you can see, I highlighted there that they're all requiring the farm program, and that they're talking about the farm program in their animal care policies that they're posting on their website, and that they're engaging with us and looking for partnership opportunities. The other thing, and we also launched all of our social media accounts, so we are looking for engagement there. One example is we are following many of your brands on social media, and our team here at National Milk is looking for ways to engage. So if you're posting about how you're craving a certain cereal or how you just love a dairy product, we might be looking to see if that dairy product is produced by one of our farm program co-ops or processors, and then be looking to share that content and again highlight the farm program and animal care. So we'd love to have your help or work with you to identify a strategic social media content promotion opportunity where we can really highlight the farm program and all of the great things that we're doing as a dairy industry when it comes to animal care. As I mentioned, we've been also doing a lot of meetings, and I know I've had the pleasure to meet with some of you on the phone, but we have been doing a very, very heavy outreach schedule of meetings to really talk about the farm program and look for those creative opportunities where we can partner on this very important issue. So these are just a smattering of some of the companies that I've had the pleasure to meet with this past year. One of the things that we've done as a part of this outreach is actually go onto some dairies and take a look at how comprehensive the farm program is. And we'd certainly be happy to work with you to set that up and to identify opportunities where we can get you on a dairy and really go through the program and do what we call a farm program deep dive. I think on the next slide, we actually have a picture that was taken on one of our tours there. You know, those are representatives from a large retailer, and we actually got them out on the dairy. We went through the farm program evaluation. That gentleman that you see there in the light blue shirt, sort of in the beam of sunlight there, is actually one of our farm program evaluators. And we set this up so that the evaluators can actually show what it means to do a farm program evaluation and how comprehensive this program is, what the questions are, different animals. It's really a great experience, and we'd be happy to help set that up. You can of course work with MDA as well, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end of the webinar. If you're interested in that, we can work together to get that set up for you, and we'd be glad to do that. And then let's talk a little bit about the future of the farm program. The farm program, as I mentioned, is updated every 3 years. And it's really updated through a very comprehensive process that starts about 1.5 years before the new set of evaluation questions are released. So I want to start here with sort of the end point in mind. So January 1, 2017 is when our farm program evaluators will be starting to evaluate dairies on what we're calling Farm 3.0. So we're currently in the second version of Farm. The first version, of course, launched back in 2009. And so this is our third comprehensive update of the farm program. And it starts with a number of our internal committees meeting, that technical writing group I talked about earlier that is comprised of those academics. They started meeting about 1.5 years ago to discuss potential updates. And then we move into review from our internal Animal Health and Well-Being Committee, which is a subcommittee of the National Milk Producers Federation Board of Directors. Then we send the entire draft, including all the changes, out for public comment. We just finished reviewing here internally over 400 public comments that were received into our office from a whole host of external stakeholders, including customers, producers, animal welfare experts across the country and around the world, frankly. And we reviewed all of those. Then our committees meet again to review all the comments received and make a determination as to how we're going to proceed. And only then do we have what is our final version. So we're in the finalizing stages of that right now. And then what we'll do this year is we'll spend the rest of the year really working to update all of the parties involved in the farm program on those changes and making sure they have the resources they need to be successful. So some of the areas we'll be focused on in version 3.0 is a heightened focus on pain management. So what are we doing to help manage the pain for those animals during some painful procedures? We'll be focusing more on training and documentation of protocols. Are all employees being trained? Are there are new questions around how are you training those employees, how often is that happening, and what are you doing to make sure that they understand the values that you hold on your farm. We're also working very closely with dairy beef. So we have worked very closely over the last year with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association to help ensure that we are producing a safe, not only a safe milk supply, but a safe beef supply as well. And we're working on some new questions around residue prevention and record keeping to make sure that when that animal gets sent off, that they're to go to hamburger heaven, as we call it, that animal is fit to be transported and it's free of any and all drug residues. And then we're also, just because our review is formally over, we've also launched 2 task forces, because we're constantly here at the farm program looking what can we do better, what questions might need to be tweaked. And so we're really looking at our hygiene questions, questions around how clean or dirty that animal is, and then also we're launching a task force to talk about lameness. One of the complicating factors around lameness is that everyone seems to have a different scale. We have a 3-point scale. The beef industry has a 4-point scale. The packers like Cargill and JBS have a 5-point scale. And so one of the things we decided we needed to do was get everyone in a room and really come to terms and come to a consensus on what the scale is, so that we're all using the same scale, so that our producers know how to score those animals, and then everyone down the line does as well. So we'll also be looking at that. I wanted to show sort of visually where we have been and where we're going in the farm program. I think it's really vitally important that we emphasize that this program has really made some significant progress over the last 7 years. So when this program launched in version 1.0 in 2009, we had a voluntary program. In version 2.0, we went to a mandatory program, which means that if you're a co-op or processor that's signed up to do the farm program, all of your supplying dairies need to also do the farm program. We talked about voluntary action plans in this version, and then we had a tail docking phase out of this practice of tail docking, which I'm sure many of you have heard things about, was set at 2022, so nearly 10 years out from when version 2 took effect. And in version 3, as you can see, we're just continuing to raise the bar. And so we're adding greater accountability. We're adding an emphasis, again, on that training, on that veterinary relationship, and on cow care. We're making sure that all those employees understand the values that are inherent to that dairy and that they're going to respect those values. And then we moved up tail docking by 5 years. So we said, you know what, 2022 is too far out. We really need to get that addressed. And so we moved it up to this year, to 2017, when version 3 will take effect. And really what we wrestle with as we're making these changes is how to really ensure that we're meeting our customers' goals when it comes to animal care and building a program that has a lot of rigor and integrity, but also that we're doing that in a practical and responsible way. It's a very fine balancing act. It's a balancing act that our committees really wrestle with. How far can we go while it's still practical for our co-ops and producers to implement in a very realistic way? And I think what we can see in version 3 is that we're really adding a lot of accountability in the program, but we're doing it in a way that's going to be very achievable for our producers, because that's the goal. We don't want to be setting the bar so high that our producers can't reach it. We want to be setting the bar at a responsible level and really continuing to tell this good story about animal care and continuous improvement. As you'll see in the next slide, I always throw this in here, number one, because I'm a very competitive person personally, and but number two, I also just think it's important that we know that the dairy industry has a very proactive stance when it comes to dealing with this important issue. I compared this, and again, this isn't to throw pork or beef under the bus. As I mentioned, we're working very closely with the beef industry, so I'm not trying to cast aspersions on their programs. But if you look at what our program versus beef and pork have in common, they of course have this educational component, which is vital to any animal care program. But really where we start to break apart in the dairy industry is this idea of mandatory second-party evaluations on all of our dairies, and then these third-party verifications. Those are two components that neither beef or pork have in their program, and I think it's really critical that we emphasize that I think dairy has chosen to address this issue in a very proactive and very verifiable manner. We really want to make sure that what we're saying about our program that we can back up, and I think that's really critical.
All right. Thanks, Emily, for all that great background. I would like to turn it over to Jamie from Midwest Dairy, who can share some specific examples about how we can actually take the tools that you've created and share the story.
Thanks, Trish, and thank you, Emily, for educating us on the farm program this morning. Before I get into some examples on how you can engage, take a step back real quick and see what we've learned here this morning. So we've learned that consumers are disconnected from agriculture, but they really want to know about that the animals that are used for food production are healthy and they're well cared for. We learned about the farm program and how it continues to focus on continuous improvement at the farm level. And we also learned about the tools that the National Milk Producers Federation created to help us communicate the work that's being done around animal care. So we really have a great opportunity to work, you have a great opportunity to work with Midwest Dairy and National Milk Producers Federation to really talk to your consumers about animal care. And today I'll provide you some examples to think about, as you end this webinar and go on to your regular business. So one of the things you can do, a very simple thing, Trish, if you go to the next slide, you can link to the farm website from your company's website. Very simple way, but also to give some information about the farm program. You could add information about the farm program to your website. So by utilizing the video that National Milk created, utilizing that supporter badge talked about, or giving an overview about the program and what it does and what the purpose of it is. Now, there's a couple of places you could do that. You can include this on your About Us section on the website. You can include it on a corporate social responsibility page. Or if you're a retailer, you can include this information right on your dairy page. And I know a lot of retailers don't currently have a dairy department page, but that's something that we can help you build out. Another opportunity that you could take advantage of is sharing the content from the farm blog. They're very active in keeping this blog current. You can share that information on social media or on your company's own blog. Trish, if we go to the next slide here, just wanted to provide you a couple visuals here. I encourage you to go to nationaldairyfarm.com to watch the video that National created about the farm program. It's a great video. It's very consumer friendly and does a great job explaining what's done to ensure that animals are cared for. Also on the right-hand side here, you'll see an example of what the farm supporter badge could look like on your website. This is an example of a animal welfare policy, and that farm badge could go right on that website. Next, another way to engage is you could develop an animal care policy. So go one step further of just putting that supporter badge on there. Create your own animal care policy and post that to your website. What we heard from Trish and what we heard from Emily is this is stuff that shoppers care about, consumers care about, they want to know. And if by developing an animal care policy, it's a very proactive approach rather than having to field questions as individual consumers arise with those questions. And here on the screen, you'll just see some examples of animal care policies. Social media is another great way to connect. So that 75% of consumers are sleeping with their phones, so we're connected at all times. And Farm, as Emily mentioned earlier, is very active on social media, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. You could share or retweet posts from the farm's social properties. So just another way, real simple way to get involved and share and communicate that message. So the stuff I've talked about so far, it's really web and social media driven, and it's really applicable to all parties on the call today. One that's very specific to retail that I'd like to just mention is in store. So kind of closing that loop, talking about the same messaging, whether it be on social media, on the website, or in store. You can engage by including the farm supporter badge in your weekly ad in your dairy section. So you'll see that it's kind of small on the left-hand side, but just showing that dedication that, from your company to animal care. You can include it on shelf strips, in your dairy section, confirming that, hey, the dairy products that I'm selling in my store, they are, the animals are treated well in the development of these products. Or door clings, as you see on the right-hand side. So these activities will really help you to communicate to your shoppers at that point of purchase, and communicate to them your support and commitment towards animal care. Another way to engage is to go on a farm tour. And farm tours are great opportunities to see how important animal care is on the farm and see it live and in person. You know, whether it's working, with national milk producers to see one of their deep dives, or it's working with Midwest Dairy with our Dairy Academy program, it's a great experience. With Midwest Dairy's Dairy Academy program, in addition to touring a dairy manufacturing facility, part of this program is also includes a farm tour. And we always, ask for responses at the end of those dairy academies, and that farm tour is always the most talked about piece of the day. It really resonates because all of us, many of us, I should say, on the phone, from agriculture, and it's a way to, if you're working in a manufacturer that produces dairy products, it's a way to get that firsthand experience about what goes on the farm. And the great thing is about all these examples is you don't have to figure it out yourself. So after this call is over, we can work together on implementing some of these things. And Midwest Dairy Association and National Milk Producers Federation, we're here to be that help. So whether it's getting outreach from PETA or Mercy for Animals, we've helped multiple partners respond to these groups. Help guide you through that response. We can help you figure out the best way to integrate the farm program into your company communication, whether it be online, social media, or in store. And we can even help you develop an animal care policy. Midwest Dairy is really here to be your go-to resource for all things dairy. And we can be your go-to contact for implementing anything that we talked about today. We'll make sure that we work with National Milk to utilize the farm resources properly and under their guidance and ensure we use them the proper way. So just a reminder before I pass it off to Trish and Elliot for questions is I just wanted to close kind of our webinar today with a reminder of a slide that we saw earlier today. Animal care is everyone's responsibility. And from the get-go, we never wanted animal care to become a competitive issue. And all of our efforts, from ensuring continuous improvement to working with our customers on shared messaging and values, really helps to guarantee that animal care will never be a differentiator. As Emily mentioned earlier, we all need to be communicating this animal care. Trish, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Jamie, for all that background. Really great practical suggestions. We wanted to hold out time at the end for questions. So if you do for Emily or Jamie, feel free to use the raise your hand feature on your control panel so that Elliot on our team can unmute your line. Or if you want to type your question in the chat box, that will work as well. And we can take some time to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, this is Elliot. We have a couple of questions that have come in. The first one is the farm badge that was mentioned earlier. Is it something that, if it appeared in a retail location, could be posted or placed on signage to advertise that product?
This is Emily, and I think that question is probably two parts. So the first part is that was really designed, for primarily for websites. But of course, we are happy to discuss use in store with you and with MDA, and we can work together on some creative ideas for that. In terms of a label for product, I will tell you that is something that we are developing a policy for the farm program in terms of putting that badge or another logo, the farm program logo on product, and we'll probably have a decision and a policy on that in the next couple of months. So I think the badge is a great place to start. Let's think creatively how we can use that, and then we'll be working over the next few months to create a formal policy on label, on product label for the farm program. We want to make sure that we're really using this information to help influence consumer trust, and we want to make sure we're not creating more label confusion. So that's sort of our hesitation there. So I think the farm badge is a great place to start, and if you're interested in using that, let's be in touch and talk about how we can work together to use that.
Okay, another question. What are the top one or two specific animal welfare topics on social media where one could play a role to help positively shape?
So I think, and I'll let Jamie answer this question as well. I think what we're seeing is just a need for information on animal care. I think the dairy industry over the last few years has done a lot better job of telling our story, but we really want to make sure that when people are looking for answers about how cows are cared for on America's dairies, that we can have that information. Because if they go looking for it and it's not there, they might be turning to someone who we wouldn't want telling our story for us. And so that's really the goal of Farm getting engaged in social, is to help tell these stories about animal care, talk about things like how difficult sometimes it is to move an animal that weighs, 1,200 pounds that doesn't want to move, or talk about what it means to work with a nutritionist to make sure that your calf's rations are correct. Some of the questions we tend to get or out from our customers that are getting pressured from activist groups are around things like tail docking, which I mentioned we're taking care of this year by moving up that deadline. Asked a lot about dehorning and poll genetics, and we could probably have an entire webinar just dedicated to that issue, but how we're looking to address that is through the timing of the procedure to make sure it's done as early as possible, and then making sure that that producer is working with their veterinarian to determine what, if any, pain medication might be available and appropriate to utilize. So we're really looking to address the issues both from a proactive standpoint, but then also talk about and make sure that that information is available on social.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, Emily, is, some of the things that we're seeing, first of all, is, 30 years ago, price, taste, and convenience, those are the really things that consumers cared about. And it's really more than that. So, like Emily said, how is that animal being treated as, it goes through that process and lives on the farm? And then also just a simple transparency. Consumers want to know. They want to be able to see it. They want to be able to know about it. And then the other thing is from a there's oftentimes, because we are so disconnected from agriculture, there's this visual that folks have about, you hear the term factory farms. But the reality is 97% of dairy farms are family owned. So yes, they may be a little bit larger than they were 50 years ago, just from consolidation, but it's still that family ownership that have the same values as you and I do day in and day out. So I just wanted to add that to that answer.
Okay, another question. Are Deans or Prairie Farms participating in the farm program, and is farm offered to independent dairy farms that process their own milk?
Yes, so Prairie Farms is participating in the farm program. They're one of our early adopters in farm, and I believe they just met our deadline of we are requiring that all co-ops and processors evaluate their farms for the first time before December 31st of this year, and I believe Prairie Farms just met that deadline with a year to spare. So congrats to them, and again, they're one of our early adopters. Dean's Foods, unfortunately, isn't participating. We're continuing to work with them to hopefully get them on board. And work with them on that. And then in terms of the independent producers, we do offer this program. We have a number of independent producers that do implement the farm program, and how that works is we help set them up with a farm evaluator that is an independent contractor to perform their evaluations and to go through the process. And then, of course, they're part of the pool for third-party verification as well.
There aren't any other questions at this time.
All right. Well, I wanted to thank both Jamie and Emily for their great information, and just share some information about where to go if you have more information, if you need more information, if you have questions after this webinar or in the future. Certainly Midwest Dairy, as Jamie mentioned, is a resource here that can help you. If you're a retailer, manufacturer, processor, feel free to follow up with your business development representative, the individual who invited you to this webinar, or you can follow up with Midwest Dairy as well, here or via our website. If you need contacts and her colleagues at the farm program are available, and we definitely will be working in collaboration to help answer any of your questions or to put some of these communications tools into practice if you think that would be useful for you. We will be sending out a copy and follow-up of this webinar, so this information will be included as well. So in closing, oh, go ahead, one more question?
Yeah, we have had one more question come in during your closing remarks. Is it possible for farms to have met the criteria for versions 1 and 2, and what happens if they're not able to meet the criteria for version 3? Or similar to that question is it possible for a farm to not be certified by the farm program, and if so, what happens?
Sure. So again, you know, the farm program is really focused on this idea of continuous improvement. So if you have a no answer to a certain benchmark, how do we work to get you to yes the next time you're evaluated? What we're putting forth in version 3, and unfortunately I'm only going to be able to give a little teaser of this because I do want to be mindful that, you know, we're going to communicate this to our co-ops and processors that participate. We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. But what we're going to be putting forth in version 3 is a greater accountability metric. So there will be certain benchmarks and questions that will trigger a mandatory corrective action plan, and if those changes aren't made, then there will be a probationary process put forward in version 3 that will sort of add this greater accountability. It's something that we certainly hear a lot from our customers, is that the farm program needs more teeth, so we're trying to be responsive to that. But in terms of the devil is always in the details, and so we are adding that accountability in terms of a mandatory corrective action plan that will be able to be tracked through our database, so we'll know how many are open at any given, and then a probationary process. But I can reveal more about that once we have the final version here in the next month or so, and that's been communicated internally to all of our co-ops, because I just want to make sure that we're communicating that with them first before it gets spread too far and wide.
And then another question: who pays the fee, the farmer or the co-op, and how is the fee determined?
Sure. So there is no fee for the second party or third party verification. The program itself covers the third party verification, and just to put that in perspective, it costs us as a program about $2,000 every farm that we third party verify. So I send about a third of my budget as a direct check to our third party audit company every year. And then in terms of our second party evaluation, the co-op or processor that has signed up for the program either hires staff or uses existing staff or contractors to complete those evaluations. So there is, of course, a cost to that in terms of staffing and resources for the co-op or the processor that's implementing the program, but there's no fee assessed to the producer when those evaluations are done. That's a cost that the co-op and the processor do as part of their budget, their annual budget process. And as I mentioned, there's about 370 trained evaluators. Many of those are either contractors with or work directly for our co-ops or processors. So there is a very large financial and human component to implementing this program.
Okay, no more questions.
Any last minute questions?
I don't see any others.
Okay. Well, in follow-up, I just wanted to remind you that, again, both Midwest Dairy and National Milk Federation are available to provide resources and assistance if you have questions. I encourage you to follow Midwest Dairy as well, our social channels, our Facebook and our Twitter account. We often tell farmer stories, link back to farmer stories and animal care stories that you would be welcome and share and just learn yourself. We also have just recently updated our website. You can find us at midwestdairy.com, and in the upper right hand we have a resources center where there's a lot of great toolkits to communicate about sustainability and dairy nutrition. There are fact sheets as well, a great fact sheet there done by our Scientific Advisory Council on animal care. Resources there that you can continue to check on and use to continue this conversation. As a follow-up, I wanted to just remind you, watch your email over the next couple of days. We'll be sending out a thank you that will include a link to the webinar recording. And for those of you who are looking for continuing education, there'll be information there about how to log for those credits. And again, feel free, there will be email information there if you have questions that you would like to ask as we continue the conversation. So I just want to thank all of you for participating in this morning's session on the FARM program. We encourage you to take what you've learned and to join that conversation and really transparency among your customers and consumers about the dairy industry's commitment. Great rest of your day. Much.